Well, the roadmap to financial freedom. Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know, I do appreciate it. Well, do you know if you are on the road to financial freedom? Today, best-selling author Brendan Schlagbaum is here today to talk a little, actually back today, except he was on about last month, I think it was. Author of the book, great book, The Roadmap to Financial Freedom. And Brendan is also a CPA and founder, we're going to talk about this today, of Budget Dog Academy. Brendan, I appreciate you coming back again.
Thank you so much for having me, Bob. And in the meantime, just this past month, I heard you ran into one of my friends and also part of Budget Dog Academy, Wendy Schneider.
Let me tell you about Wendy. She is passionate about this. I mean, she is, and I just love talking to her about it. What a small world.
We love Wendy. She's one of the best human beings you'll ever come across.
And y'all are doing some great work there at Budget Dog. I want to get there because I want to make sure people know about it and know about the foundation as well. Let's start though with the story that led to the book, that led to all this happening. Talk a little bit about what stirred your interest in writing this book.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I always talk about the person that you become. You always can look back and help that person before you became the person you are. And helping your former self is a super important thing, I think, because there's so many people that were like you or in the same position. And so that was really my reality. Is I didn't have an intention to build a company. I didn't have an intention to write a best-selling book. I didn't have an intention for Budget Dog Academy. It just came naturally and organically because of the stuff that we went through as a family financially. And so when we figured out a roadmap and a solution to so many heartaches out there with finances, I realized, we aren't the only ones that are struggling with this. And one thing I've always been taught from my parents at a young age is being able to give back. And so what I thought the whole time is I just solved a major problem that so many people face on a daily basis. How can I go give back? How can I give back to the people that need this the most? And that's where my mind started racing. And I started thinking about all these cool things of, I did this and that and that. What if I just systemize that? And I'm a CPA, so I have that brain, the operational brain that just constantly keeps turning. And I was like, if I can systemize this and make this easy for anybody to kind of come into a system, get the solution they're looking for, this could be awesome. And that's really where the Budget Dog account came from, which then later turned into products and services and one-on-one offerings and all that kind of stuff. That led to Budget Dog Academy that has the exact roadmap to financial freedom, which then spurred my actual national best-selling title, The Roadmap to Financial Freedom. And it was just so obvious and clear. It was clear to me because I've done it. And so when you've done something, the nooks and crannies and the hardships that you have to go through on a practical basis. And I think that's what separates us. We really look through the lens of just somebody that wants success and on a practical way. Like, you don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be a CPA. You don't have to have, exquisite Excel knowledge or understanding investments inside out. It's just a simple, proven process. And when you implement this simple, proven process over and over and over again, you're going to get results that our students do. And, it's incredible. Over the last day, we've had 4 different students submit net worth wins over, various periods of time. We had somebody that did a $66,000 net worth increase in 3 months, $400,000 increase in 14 months, 115 and 125,000 both in 6-month periods. And so a lot of people look at that and they think, well, there's no way. But the reality of it is it's a very fundamental, simplified process, and that's why the big results come, because you're really practicing extraordinary of the ordinary, and it's really just that simple. And I try to reiterate that as much as possible and relay that communication to everybody, because a lot of people just don't have that belief in themselves. And once they get over that, which we also help with, the technical steps are the easy part.
You talk about that, about how we think and how we believe. I mean, it has such a big impact on our outcomes. In the book, you write about mindset shifts. Talk a little bit about the importance of these shifts.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole academy is built on the beginning emotional part of money. And so this mindset shift was big for us when we first started. I didn't come from a financial background. I am a CPA. I got my CPA, but that doesn't teach you personal finance. And my parents weren't financial wizards by any means either. God love them, but they didn't teach me what a Roth IRA was. I didn't. I just put money in a bank, and I had to learn the hard way. And my mindset growing up was save, 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 save. And I came to the age of 23 after making a lot of money from jobs like McDonald's and restaurant jobs and construction jobs and pool jobs, all these sorts of jobs I had in high school and college. And I didn't have any net worth to show, but I felt like I was doing all the right things, what I was told to save money. And I realized saving doesn't get you there. It's saving and investing.
Yes.
And that mindset shift took me, I can't even put words on it, to be honest, how much that little of a mindset shift changed my whole perspective of money. And it was when I started my career at Deloitte. I was 22, 23 years old, and I started coming across all these very wealthy individuals, partners, and stuff of that nature at Deloitte, and they would tell me all this stuff about their investments, and I just didn't grow up with like a family and friends that would talk about like investing, like that wasn't a thing. And when I put myself in that environment, all of a sudden it became normalized, and I realized all they're doing differently is taking the same money that they're earning that I'm earning too, and they're just doing different things with it, and those different things get better results. So why don't I learn what those different things are to get better results? And it was like so obvious to me. And so once I started applying those different things, which are really all lined in, the fundamentals of finance, I started getting better results. And so I became addicted to the process and just learning and bettering myself. And then to the point where we teach the everyday person exactly how to do this.
It's funny as you talk about a lot of your beliefs and get into detail. I find that you and I really look at the world a lot of the same way. And the book, The Roadmap to Financial Freedom, I get Brendan, I get people ask me all the time, what's a book that I could get that can get me started that's complete. There's very few complete books out there that take you from A to Z, but this book does do it. The Roadmap to Financial Freedom. Let's talk a little bit, about budgeting. Yeah, I like to call it the art of budgeting. It's one thing to create a budget for yourself, and it's a whole other situation. You have to bring a spouse into it. It could be the money can be a toxic subject. What advice do you have for couples trying to do this, trying to create a joint budget?
Yeah, it's a sticky situation for many, especially early on. So we had I think I might have told you this last time we talked, but we had a student that did not talk to their spouse for 25 years. And they were, anytime the idea of money came up with, as you know, that's a daily type of conversation. They would just not talk. And she joined the academy. She started going through the process. She met with our behavioral psychologist in the very, very beginning, which is a huge part of the academy to shift that mindset for people. But also, if you do have a spouse, understand what are the subconscious reasons that you're doing
Mm,
whatever you're doing. And
right.
oftentimes, like money is a huge reason for divorce. And if people aren't understanding each other's subconscious and you're operating at just the conscious level, well, newsflash, 90% of our behaviors come from our subconscious. So that's a pretty big unknown if you don't know why you do 90% of your actions. And so understanding that subconscious first is your first step. And we have a psychologist to help you get through that, which is a huge, huge milestone for many people. Lots of tears are shed, lots of great conversation, lots of feedback from that meeting they have. It's usually a 30 minutes to an hour meeting with a psychologist. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just knowing yourself better. I went through the process myself and was blown away about things I didn't know about my own self. And when you know more about yourself, you make better decisions. And then when you know more about your partner specifically in their subconscious, in their really, really deep, stuff internally, you're going to be able to communicate better. And I think communication is the name of the game. The more you communicate, most of us all, at our core, we're all the same. We all want the same thing. We want better for everybody. We're all pretty good people at our core. But oftentimes our communication is where we don't hear each other talk. Like, we hear different routes and different solutions, but really at the end of the day, we're really just trying to do better for ourselves and our family. And most spouses, I would say, and I would argue, both want better for the family. And if they don't, that's obviously a bigger question to ask yourself, and a bigger, relationship question that I'm not an expert in. But if you truly understand what the true motivations and the subconscious things that you're being told in your brain, and you understand that of your spouse, that communication line becomes a lot more fluid. And the more you communicate internally to each other, the better results you're going to get. The more open you are to each other, the more understanding you are, because the more understanding, the better, you're going to align with each other. And you're like, okay, well, I get that. I understand where you're coming from. What do you think about this perspective? And you can have the open dialogue that's going to take you a really long way. But it all starts with understanding yourself. And that's not an easy process to just, tap into your subconscious, which is why we have a professional help you do so. And I'm telling you, when you do that, your whole life opens up in many other ways, not just finance.
Brennan, you mentioned how important it is to have a solid support team around you when it comes to sticking to and reaching goals. How do you go about? Who are the best kinds of people to offer this accountability?
Yeah, I always compare. I know you go to the gym with Wendy and you see her there a lot, and we often explain this. It's like, we're the coaches, we're the trainers, the gym trainers. If you show up to the gym, you're going to get results. And so when you're looking for an accountability partner out there, you need just somebody with actual results from a practical standpoint, right? You don't need somebody that has the CPA title like myself behind it. Like, did your best friend get results with their budget? Did your best friend, or did somebody at your workplace become a millionaire through standard budgeting and investing in low-cost index funds and ETFs? Find that individual that's actually done it. You don't need to worry about credibility, what college they graduated from, any of that stuff. If you see a trainer at the gym and they're jacked and you want to get jacked, go talk to that person. I guarantee they have some tips up their sleeve, and they're probably pretty accountable to themselves because they got the results. And I bet they have a system that actually works, it's a proven system. And that's what we talk about all the time internally, is we don't force anybody to get results. We have the system, we have the gym. If you just show up, you're going to get results. It's pretty guaranteed. It does take time. It is. You have to have patience. These are all things we teach along the way and along the roadmap. But that's where you want to find your accountability partner, somebody that's actually been there and done that, not somebody that's read a textbook and is just talking about it.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. We're talking to Brennan about a great book called The Roadmap to Financial Freedom, A Millionaire's Guide to Building Automated Wealth. And in the book, you talk about zero-based budget. Why is this something that people should be using? And talk a little bit about what it is.
Yeah, zero-based budgeting is essentially taking all of your income and putting it somewhere, whether that's savings, whether that's investments, whether that's your expenses or whatnot. So it's really obvious when you think about it from a 30,000-foot view, but on a daily basis or a monthly basis or however you want to look at it, there's very few people that actually do this. And so if you're assessing any bit of data, and in my former life, I was an auditor at Deloitte, and so we always talk about audit assertions. Completeness and accuracy were the two biggest things. And so if you don't have complete and accurate data, you're not going to be able to have good results, and your system's not going to work because you might be leaving out a big piece of data that's going to give you a better decision down the road. So all it really is getting all of the information in your financial world, making sure you understand all of your income. We're talking side hustle income. We're talking salary, hourly, grandma's Christmas money, whatever it is, whatever comes in and hits your bank account. You're accounting for everything, and you're giving it a home. So you're allocating, X percentage to your investments, X percentage to your expenses. But you know that, and then you automate that system so that you don't have to consistently do that every single month. And that automation component is going to change your life in a massive way, because there's nothing better than a robot doing the work for you. Could you imagine if you and Wendy are at the gym, you guys just all of a sudden got six-pack abs, and you guys just put a robot in a couple of stations, you say, hey, go do your work, but then you got the result of the robot? That's what you can do. And it's an amazing experience. It's also so simple at its core, But there's a lot of people that don't do the zero-based budgeting, don't do the automation because they don't value it. They don't think it's that big of a deal, but it really drives a lot of the result because we're just not good as human beings at being consistent, to be honest.
So let's talk a little bit about setting financial goals, because it is that time of the year, and I always laugh because in January I do a couple of shows on setting goals, and I always encourage people to think back what the goals they set for 2024, and most people can't even remember it. Talk a little bit about how you go about being very realistic with the financial goals you set within your budget.
Yeah, so we actually take every student through a cash flow goal worksheet specifically. So you daydream, you do whatever you want to do, drink a glass of wine with your spouse, and you go on the whiteboard or wherever you want to doodle and just think about what your life wants to look like. And that's not right. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's what do you want specifically for you and your family. And so once you define that, you start to kind of like summarize that into bullet points. And those become your goals. And now the second piece of that is what I do is I rearrange those goals based on value and priority. So which ones do you value in order, and just value stack those and prioritize those in order. And from there, it's very clear cut as far as, the process you're going to go through, because now we just need some technical expertise. The hard part is understanding what you want as a person, what you want as a family. The technical exercise we take all our students through, which is like defining the actual account, defining the timeline, defining the monthly amount associated with that based on the available free cash flow. That stuff's actually the easy part. I can walk anybody through that at any stage of the game. Where people get held up is they don't know what they truly want because they've never actually asked themselves that question. They've always been told online, I should be a millionaire. I should retire early. I should be financially free. But what does that mean for you? For some people, they love their 9 to 5. They want to work forever. So your goal might not be the same as somebody that wants to retire at 45 years old and start a private family foundation. It's just not the same, and that's okay, but you have to be true to yourself. And so I always say take the money out of it and just ask yourself, if money wasn't on the table, what type of life would you lead? And then we can back into the numericals. That's the easy side. That's the technical stuff I have processes and systems for. But I can't tell you what you want. You have to be true with yourself. You have to have deep, honest conversations with you and your spouse and family members. The other stuff I got. And that's the practical approach we take every student through.
If you want more information about Brennan, go to a great website, budgetdog.com, and you can get more information on the book. Let's talk a little bit about what's interesting, and I think you'll agree with what you do in working with people, is you see all kinds of stories, and you have kind of like the front row center of watching how people are struggling with money. And talk about some of the common budgeting mistakes people make, and how they can avoid them.
Yeah, when it comes to budgeting and the biggest mistakes, I think the first and most obvious one is one we just kind of talked about, was they just don't account for everything.
Right.
They're frustrated. They write down their fixed expenses and maybe their fixed income, but they're not accounting for all the variable expenses and like the one-time things that pop up. And so there's like, I can't get ahead, and I don't understand why. And I think that's the number one issue for most people. I think the other issue is actually before that, and it's actually just not starting because they don't believe. And we talk about the mindset shift a lot, but I can't tell you how many people come across my page and they say, man, I really wish I would have known about you and your system 20 years ago or 10 years ago. Is it too late? And I always say, no, it's not too late. But the mindset is thinking it's too late is a big problem, because that naturally just has people procrastinating even further and further along down the road. And before they know it, as in the principle of money is time. Money needs time to compound. And so just not starting, like purely not starting, is one of the biggest issues I see. And then once they get into it, not seeing the completeness and accuracy of their actual picture, or not knowing what to do. And I'd say the third is a little further down the road, is just overall execution of their plan. So once they might get over the mindset shift, and then they understand here's the completeness and accuracy, how do you build a system that is consistent for you for the next 30, 40 years without you being involved? So if, I'm sick on a Tuesday, which I was, and is my system going to work for me whether or not I get up or feel great? And that's the question you got to ask yourself. Do you have the automations built in place? Do you know what's going where, when? And when you build that, you can stay consistent and you'll get results because it's a systematic approach. So if you don't get results, your system's flawed and you got to look at your system, but at least you know it's not yourself. But oftentimes we let ourselves run this, the manual system, and it becomes an issue. And so those are the three biggest things. It's not even starting. It's not having the completeness and accuracy. And then once you start, it's not keeping consistent pace because you don't have the automation component built in.
We talk about financial freedom on the program all the time. From a financial term aspect, that's one of my favorite phrases. And what do you think gets in the way of people achieving that?
Man, there's so much that I could go into and so many deep conversations, but I'll keep it surface level today. So I think the belief system really hampers more than we'd like to think. I think a lot of people would default to like, hey, I don't make enough money, or this just isn't for me. Like little excuses that they're throwing out in their head, which we call a negative cognition. And the reality is that is probably the number one thing holding most people back. When I see the biggest success in my students, and what I try to do is get them quick wins in the beginning, because I always know that no matter who it is, no matter how excited they are when they start, a lot of people are going to have a hard time unless they see a quick win. That's how we are as human beings, and I make sure my program accounts for human beings because human beings go through the program. And so I say, how can I get somebody a quick win just to show them that they actually have a shot? Because I know they have a shot because I've already, screened them. I already made sure I did all the qualifications. I know they're going to get results, like internally. But if the coach knows the player has a ton of potential and the player doesn't believe in themselves, the player's never going to rise to the occasion to get those results, and the coach is going to have a hard time motivating. So I try to instantly get people to believe. If you believe and you show that you can, the rest of the stuff's easy, but you have to believe deep, and this is a deep embedded belief. This isn't just like, I can do it. It's like, I truly believe because I can see a clear path. And I think clarity on that vision and on the roadmap to financial freedom that I always talk about, the subtitle of this book is called A Millionaire's Guide to Building Automated Wealth. It's because I want you to see the outcome before you actually get the outcome, because then you actually are motivated to go get the outcome. And if I can paint that picture really clear in the future, I know you're going to get results because you now see it. That'd be crazy if you saw the result and you just decided not to do it. That's not very normal. And so when we get the results we see with students, it's just because we map out very clear picture. And I talked to a student literally yesterday. He's the one that I mentioned in the beginning with the $66,000 net worth increase in 3 months. He's like, I know when I'm going to be financially free, and I actually believe I can do it earlier because on paper I can do it at, I think it was like 17 years. But he's like, I think I can get it in about 14 years if I do X, Y, and Z. But now he has a system, he has clarity, and he knows there's just a few things in the system I got to tweak and make my system a little better. And then all of a sudden I'm going to, speed up my journey 3 years. And that's what happened with my wife and I. We set the plan up. We saw the end goal, and we knew what was going to happen. And then we said, how can we get better? And we started tweaking the system that was already built. And so we have a structure in front of us. Now, how do we actually, how do we strategize to fix the system, tweak this, tweak that, to speed that process up? This happens, I can't tell you how many times this happens with my students that pay off their debt. The average student in the program will pay off their debt 28 months earlier than they anticipated, and that's purely because they didn't have a clear plan before, so they just didn't know. And then they get in there, like, I think it's going to be 4.5 years, and they speed that journey up entirely because now they have very clear and good data, and that's really the big thing that holds most people back.
The book is The Roadmap to Financial Freedom. This is a great book and a book that will help you a lot. A Millionaire's Guide to Building Automated Wealth. And for more information, budgetdog.com. Brendan, I so appreciate you and the work that you're doing. You're really helping a lot of people.
Thank you so much, Bob, for having me back. And I'm honored to be on the show, and I will come on whenever. Maybe I make a guest appearance at the gym with Wendy as a guest.
There you go. Well, good talking to you, Brendan.
Thanks, man. See ya.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Brendan actually lives in the DFW area. Not sure where, but I know he lives in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So he's got a lot of great things, and there's still so much more I'd like to unpack out of this book. The Roadmap to Financial Freedom. He talks a lot about what we talk about on the program, and talking about the clarity and the details. I thought that was so good, just really good information. And then oftentimes you try to achieve getting out of debt and just don't have that game plan put together. And that and what we believe and what we think and how we go about the process is just so extremely very, very important. Well, if you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.